Today is March 2nd, 2020, and we're in Fountain Library interviewing Mr. Robin Wong. My name is Antu Deng,
My name is Anne Shi.
and now we shall begin the interview. Okay, first of all, can you tell us where and when you were born?
I was born here in Houston, April 18th, 1975.
And how would you describe the household that you grew up in?
I honestly don't remember much about it at all. My parents got divorced when I was very young. I lived with my grandmother from the time I was 5 years old to about 7 years old in Montrose, actually, so that's pretty cool. And then my father got remarried and lived with my father until I was till 7th grade. In 7th grade, my mother got remarried and moved in with my mother. And then 17 years old, I moved out of the house. So.
Okay, and so since your parents are like from different cultures, do you perhaps have any like memories of the fusion in your household? Because there are differences.
So the funny thing is, well, it's not funny, but we're third generation here, which is not as common. So my father was born in Tennessee, and he's half Chinese, half American. Speaks no Chinese. My grandfather passed away when I was 5, so growing up with my grandparents for those few years, my grandfather was very active in Chinatown, the original downtown Chinatown. So some of the things I remember is taking the bus, actually, taking the metro to Chinatown and walking around, and I don't know what, my grandfather knew everybody. So just walking around to everybody's stores and saying hi to people, and them giving us snacks and candies and stuff. That's one of the few memories I have growing up. I remember Chinese New Year at I think it was Hunan Palace. Is that what it was called? Downtown. Mm-hmm. It's the building is still there, but I think it's been empty for years. I always say I think it'd be really cool for Houston to save that building, because growing up, not like now where there's a lion dance on every block, that was the big one. Everybody came out. It was a big deal. So we got a little bit of Chinese culture then, but moving into my dad's house, 2nd grade to 6th grade, is pretty much American, like any other American kid.
Mm-hmm. And so do you have like a dish that you really liked when you were young?
Oh. When I was really young, probably sweet and sour pork, probably.
So what were some of the values that your parents as well as your grandparents emphasized on you in your upbringing?
Probably the big one is just really respect your elders. That's a big one,
And so your brother and you co-own the restaurant together right now. And could you tell us about how your relationship with your brother has been when you two were younger? Have you two always been close?
So actually there was 3 of us. I have a young brother that passed away. And it was like 98 or so. So when you grow up in a divorced family, your brothers are all you have, so we were all very close, and we're pretty close in age. Terry's only a year and a half older than me, and my little brother was 3 years younger than me. Mm. So it was always the boys, the 3 boys, the 3 boys, the 3 boys. So you just kind of grow up, especially, and you guys probably know this too, like, well, I don't know. If you grew up here and you have from an immigrant family, your parents are pretty much working all the time. So, the only people in the house are your brothers or sisters. So, we're very close in that sense, just because that we were all we had, really.
Mm-hmm. And so you and Terry are brothers, and how about Kui, your co-owner?
We met in high school,
okay.
And we've been friends since high school, so 30 years.
Oh, wow, okay. So moving on to your education, can you tell us a bit about your college years?
So I dropped out of high school. My mom was upset. But one thing I always told my mom is like, I will go back. So finished high school, didn't get my GD. Actually got my diploma through night school. Went to HTC for a few years, got some core stuff out of the way. Got grades were good enough to transfer into UT. So transferred into UT, stayed there for a couple of years. And then we opened up our karaoke bar.
Mm-hmm.
So I withdrew from UT, and we just ran our karaoke bar for 5 years. When that closed down, I went back to school, got my associates at HCC, and then transferred into U of H. But then I had a kid, so dropped out again. So I just have my associates.
So when you were in college, what were your majors?
When I was at UT, I started off as computer science. Then what I really wanted to do was graphic design. At that time, there was no program at UT. I believe there is now, but at that time there wasn't, so I thought computer science. So when I went to UT, I was kind of going towards marketing and graphic design.
And what do you imagine your career would be like when you were in your younger years?
I didn't have a clue. I had no idea.
Okay. And so, could you tell me about your first job after all the college years?
Oh, after college? Well, like I said, after college, we went straight into opening up our own business.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably imagined that's where I'd always be because my mom runs her own business. Mm-hmm. And I was a graphic designer for my friend's company for a little bit, and I just wasn't happy. So I think that I always was going to be kind of a, run my own business kind of person.
Yeah.
Do you think your interest in graphic design in a way help you in your future career, say like in the barbecue? How did that help?
Yeah, well, so I'm like I said, I worked for a friend of mine at his design company, and he taught me a lot of the basics. And I've done graphic design for tons of clubs in Houston. I've designed logos for different people. So I did independent graphic design. I've done a bunch of stuff. I DJ, I've ran lights, I bartended, I've done a ton of stuff. So I know my way around this industry very well. I designed all the logos for any of our companies. So yeah, it helps out a lot. Just that whole sense of branding. Yeah, I do all the design work for anything that we do. I do all the design work.
And so, could you tell us your overall experience with Glitter Karaoke and why karaoke?
So growing up in Houston, and especially growing up in the Southwest in Alief, there's a lot of karaoke bars. And we would go to all of them. And they all had their good points. One of the major things going to Chinatown at that time was that karaoke bars were divided into what nationality you were. So we're ABC. So we didn't really fit any of them. We're not only ABC, we're not full Chinese. So we didn't really fit into any karaoke bar. We could, not Vietnamese. We didn't go to only Cantonese bars. There's Taiwanese bars, there's all these different, there's not really a bar for people like us. So we decided, why don't we just take everything that we love about each one of the places that we go and make our own place? And it was very successful.
So you start with pop-ups before coming to a brick and mortar place, right, for the barbecue. So how did it happen?
So we ran Glitter Karaoke in Chinatown for 5 years, 2000, 2005. Then we closed for 5 years, and my brother and I were in the club scene, either promoting or I was DJing or bartending. And then in 2010, we had the opportunity to reopen Glitter Karaoke in Midtown, which is a whole different clientele. But we started doing a steak night there, and Kui, our partner now, he loves to grill. And so we started a steak night, and he was grilling our steaks. he was starting to learn how to smoke things, which is not the same as grilling. Grilling is like you throw a hamburger on a grill. Smoking is like there's no fire, it's only smoke, and it takes 10 hours to cook something. So he's starting to play around with that, and we would pass it out to our customers. And the customers were like, this is really good. So we bought a big smoker and started doing pop-ups around town. And since we're already in the kind of the club industry, it was very easy to ask someone, hey, will you come let us cook? You know, I'll DJ, you'll get a free DJ, you'll get free food. You know, we'll bring people to your place. So, of course, that's very easy to do for someone, you know, that owns a bar to be like, yeah, come on, you're going to bring me business? Come on, you know. So we did that for 5 years. We got invited to different barbecue festivals, started getting a little notoriety, you know, getting our name out there. And it just got to the point where people were like, you have to open a restaurant. So after 5 years, that's what we did. We opened a restaurant.
It's really innovative. Was there anyone else that's doing similar things to what you did?
Not what we're doing. People are doing innovative things, but not with Asian flavors at that time. There's more now, and you know, maybe we helped open the door to that, but there's definitely a lot more people doing it now, and I think maybe they saw that we're successful and there's a market for it, so it's easier for them to, it's not so much of a risk for them to like, hey, I'm gonna try this. They could be like, those guys do it, you know, like we can do it too, you know. So maybe it did help, you know.
So how did the roles of the three of you involve in working together? Like, I know you were more of a marketing and strategy person. Yeah.
I handle a lot of that stuff. Most of the stuff I do at the restaurant, inside the restaurant when we're open, is I'm managing the kitchen. Like almost all the recipes that come out of the kitchen are my recipes. Kui handles all of the meat. So Kui will say like, hey, I want to try to do this with some kind of protein, with some kind of meat. And then I'll try to come up with something in the kitchen, like some kind of a side item to pair with what he's doing with the proteins. And then my brother, he's like a front of house manager.
Mm-hmm.
He talks to a lot of the customers.
And so we were a bit curious, so how did you come up with the name Blood Bros?
So, you know, marketing, I always say this, there's a million bars, there's a million restaurants, there's a million barbecue places. You have to know your niche. You have to have a catch, right? Mm-hmm. So our catch with the food is very strong flavors, a little bit spicier than your average barbecue. So we were like, oh yeah, it's bolder barbecue. So you have to have a name. You can't have a sissy name if you're doing strong food. So it has to be a strong name. And I just kept thinking, and then I came up with Blood Brothers because of the story. People love a story too. So when you think of Blood Brothers, what that means is very close friends. They're like, this is not my brother, but he's like my blood brother, you know? Mm-hmm. So, you know, with Kui and my brother and I being so close for so many years, we thought Blood Brothers was a cool name. Dual meanings, you know, Blood Brothers for the relationship, but then also you're dealing with proteins. Mm-hmm. So the average person that doesn't understand is like, oh, Blood Brothers, that's really gross. Why would you name a restaurant that? But of course, those are people that aren't looking past the blood part. Like if you actually know what Blood Brothers means, it's about a relationship. You know, it's not two separate words, blood and brothers. It's Blood Brothers is one meaning. And so I told my brothers, I told Kui and my brother, I was like, I came up with this name. It's a little heavy, but tell me what you think. And I told them, and they were like, that's it. That's the one. And that was it. Went the next week and got the DBA, and it was done.
Mm-hmm. So the three brothers are the Blood Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
So was there any support that you had during the opening of the restaurants, like financial-wise, or was there a mentor?
So at Glitter Karaoke, we've been doing, at this point now, Glitter Karaoke in Midtown's been over 10 years. We do chef pop-ups all the time. So we have guest chefs come in, So we have a lot of friends that are very good chefs that have been very open to sharing techniques and ideas, or we may bounce ideas off of them, and they'll help us along with some of the stuff. So mentors, yeah, we've probably got them all over the city, you know, food-wise. Opening the restaurant, it was easy. We've been in this industry for 20-something years. We know so many people around town. So when we opened, it was automatically getting people there. As far as financially, my parents helped out a lot. Qui's parents helped out a lot. We do have a few outside investors, people that we've met along the way that we trust and have the same vision. So yeah, it was a little bit of a team effort, you know, but people look at us now and say, "Oh, you've only been open a year. How are you? How you look how much you've done?" It's like, well, the restaurant's been open for a year. We did pop-ups for 5 years, and we've been in this industry over 20 years. So it's not just an overnight success. Like some people think, "Oh, man, how did y'all do it? It's overnight success." I'm like, no, that's a lot of work, and a lot of years to get where we are now.
So were there like a really significant difficulty that you overcome that you would like to share?
No, not really. I mean, because if you are paying attention and always trying to move forward and always trying to set goals, then you don't let yourself get to those places. You know, you always have to be a step ahead.
So going back to the recipes, since you wrote all the recipes, were there any elements of your home cooking, for example, your father, although you said your parents were divorced, and your father's background from Tennessee, where is also famous for barbecue.
Right.
Have any element in your recipe?
No. Like I said, my grandfather had a restaurant. He was a great cook. My dad is a great cook, but he didn't cook very often. So my mom was one of those people where very against eating out, no processed foods, no, we cook at home, so my mom's the type of mom, like, wasn't necessarily like she'd say like, oh, we're gonna cook this Chinese dish. It was very much like, what do we have in the refrigerator that I can make, but I think that kind of spontaneity and that being able to turn something good from nothing, I think I learned a lot from that. Just as far as like, you got this and you got this. They don't really go together, but we'll figure it out, So I think that kind of creativity helped me with my cooking. And just kind of teaching me the basic flavors of Chinese cooking. Eventually, I'd love to go sit in some of my friends' restaurant and learn more of the complex stuff, or more real Chinese cooking instead of, like, restaurant cooking instead of home cooking. Because I feel like I'm a pretty decent home cook. But if you start getting into more of the fancy Chinese dishes, I don't know anything about those. So, but eventually I'd love to learn. You have to keep learning. I think I've gotten by. But, eventually those dishes people are going to get tired of them. They want something new. So we've got to keep learning.
So what's your most successful dish that you're proud of?
My favorite one is I do a brisket chow fun, but it's so dumb, but it's so good. But people love the fried rice. The chow fun I haven't put on the menu. That's something I've cooked for staff, and they love it, and it's really good. But people talk about the brisket fried rice all the time, and I'm like, it's fried rice. Like, you teach your kids how to make fried rice. Like, it's fried rice, but it's good. People love it.
Do you think that in a way that your lack of culinary training actually helped you to become more creative like this?
It probably did. It probably did because instead of thinking more focused, I'm a little more open because I know that I don't know. So that might, yeah, it might help.
So would you recommend people to go to culinary school?
So I talked to a lot of chefs. A lot of chefs, some of them will say yes. I think it depends on how good of a cook you are already, how good is your palate already. If you really don't know much, then yeah, probably go to culinary school. Like for me, my chef friends say, no, you need to go train with other chefs. Just go to the restaurant. You like a restaurant? Go to that restaurant, ask the chef, can I hang out in your kitchen for a little bit? Ask as many questions as you can. They tell me, I already know how to cook, so now it's just learning and asking questions. So they told me that's what I really need to do. Go spend a weekend in someone else's kitchen and just watch and ask questions. So that's my plan when I get some free time.
So, who is your favorite chef so far?
Well, one of my favorite chefs right now is Chef Ryan Lashane. He's over in Montrose. We're very good friends. He likes to play around with a lot of stuff too. And he's very technique driven. So there's a lot of things that you can cook. You can, like, let's just say I have a pork chop. There's a million different ways you can cook it. I might only know 2 ways. He might know 20. So he might know an application to cook and prepare that steak for something, that pork chop that I'm trying to do that I wouldn't know. So those are the things, like I'm saying, like that you want to learn. You know, like I can make a pork chop and it'll be good, but he might have 20 other ways to do it. A couple of them might be better, you know.
So you talked about your food scene in Houston that has gone from little fusion to a lot of fusion, and you probably contributed to that. And how do you think that will happen in the future?
You know, a lot of people talk about Houston. Houston's on the map right now as being one of the, I guess, pushing diversity and fusion in food because it's just merely a reflection of the people that live here and the open-mindedness of people here. Like I talk about this all the time. There's kimchi in our fried rice. 10 years ago, if I put kimchi in that fried rice, the majority of Americans would be like, I'm not eating that. Just because they didn't know what kimchi was. And it, you know, kind of has a little bit of a aroma. You know, some of these things that we, as Asians, take for granted, some of the smell sometimes can be off-putting to Americans. But, you know, fast forward, you know, from 10 years to just 5 years ago, people are like, oh man, kimchi, that's great. And I'm like, those are the same people in high school that if you would have brought kimchi to lunch, they would have made fun of you and told you, like, take that on the to the other side of the cafeteria, keep that away from me, you know? And, you know, that's what's great is some of that racial segregation and ignorance is starting to disappear, and people are starting to get more open to trying food. So when we opened the restaurant, we put brisket fried rice on the menu. I told them, do not put kimchi. Do not tell people we have kimchi in it. But then people say, well, what am I tasting? And I'm like, well, we put a little bit of kimchi in there. Like, oh man, it's so good, you know? So they're starting to be open to these kind of flavors. You know, you talk about like fish sauce. Now people are like, oh man, fish sauce is so great. You know, it's like, well, 10 years ago you wouldn't have said that, you know? So you're starting to see chefs being able to integrate some of these things that people were staying away from, but they never had the flavors, the umami, you know? So now they're like, oh man, this is so good. And they're doing it in a creative way where it's not offending people, or, you know, they're not scared of it. And so, yeah, there's Houston's really on the forefront of that. Just all these chefs, not just in Asian restaurants or fusion restaurants, chefs all over the city, no matter what the cuisine, are integrating some of these things into their food. And a lot of times the customers don't even know it. But it's making the food better. You know, the food scene in Houston is amazing right now.
And these are Caucasian customers or Asian customers? Or?
For our restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit of everything. I mean, we get so many American, white American, black American customers that love the fried rice. They may not know there's kimchi in there, because I don't put it on the menu. I don't put brisket kimchi fried rice. I just say brisket fried rice. But they love it, and the first person to really advertise or put it out there that there was kimchi in the fried rice was Daniel Vaughn of Texas Monthly. And I specifically told him, do not say that I was like, on the side, I was like, there's kimchi in there. I was like, don't say anything. Or he writes it up. These guys are putting kimchi in the brisket fried rice. Because he was proud of it. He was like, kind of like, don't worry. He was trying to say, like, the article was, these guys are pushing Texas barbecue. So he wanted to make it, hey, they're putting kimchi in the fried rice. And I was like, oh, man. Like, it's kind of our secret, But, no, it's been great. And it's, like I said, people love the fried rice. So
that's
it works.
your secret ingredient.
In that one, yeah. I mean, if people ask us, we tell them. But it's not, like I said, it's not on the menu. It doesn't say there's kimchi in there.
So in a way, you're helping culture and food to become more connected. People are overcoming barriers.
So that's kind of the thing, when you set out to do something, or when we set out to open this restaurant, or even just the barbecue, there was never a sense of obligation, or there was never a sense of expectation, or we were never set out to be like, we're gonna be the spokespeople for Texas Asian barbecue. Like, it was never that. It was just like, this is good barbecue. This is the way we would cook it. And then people liked it. And, you see 3 Asian guys doing Texas barbecue, and it tastes a little different. And then, what are y'all doing? Like, well, I do a little stuff here and there. We do this. Like, all of a sudden, instead of Texas barbecue, it's Asian barbecue. And it's been great. The exposure has been great. The press has been amazing about showcasing us. Whereas I always say, like, if we were 3 Americans, would we have gotten the same exposure? So it's one of those things, like, right? It's a catch-22. You're very proud of what you're doing. We're very proud to be Asian. We're very proud to get the exposure. The media is paying attention, especially in this age of diversity, right? So all these magazines, they want to be diverse. They want to be like, we don't only showcase Americans. We showcase Asian Americans. We showcase Black Americans. We showcase this too. And sometimes you feel like, oh, well, these people have a quota to meet. Their editors saying, go find something other than a white guy doing something, So then sometimes you think to yourself, are they only talking to us because we're Asian? Or do they really enjoy the food? And maybe it's both, right? So you gotta be proud that we're representing the Asian community, but then you also be like, are they just here because of the way we look? Or are they here for the food, Or like, it's tough. I think that we've managed to represent Houston, Chinese, Vietnamese, United States. We have writers from Singapore and Thailand and Japan and Australia come by and write about us. So all of a sudden you're a spokesperson when all you want to do is cook food, right? So there's some pressure there, but yeah, the main thing is, like, I just want people to enjoy the food, Like, I understand that there is a little bit of a burden, not a burden, but like a...
Politically correctness.
Yeah, like, we are representing not only Chinese Americans, we are representing our city, we're representing our state, we're representing our country. So is there a little bit of responsibility? That's the word. There is a little bit of a responsibility there that you feel,
So you were talking about the secret ingredient. Do you think there's any competitors out there that you think that would be worth checking out?
Oh man, you know, if it was my fried rice, I like the salted fish fried rice, you know. I love it. That is not something that I could put in front of an American person, I don't think. You know, like, I don't know, maybe. But, like, that's one of my favorite fried rices, you know. And so, I mean, you look at I'm Chinese, but I'm putting this Korean ingredient into our fried rice. Because I was looking for some kind of a kick. We tried, you know, just some hot sauce, but some people don't want hot sauce. Some people can't handle the spice of hot sauce. They needed that acid, so kimchi just it ended up working. And kimchi fried rice is not a new thing. You know, any Korean restaurant will serve that, but you're not going to get that at House of Bowls. You're not going to get that in a Chinese restaurant, you know. But it works, and you know, and appreciating all Asian food, you know, you can find ways to put a little Thai into something that's Chinese, or which is, well, I guess it's more like Singapore, or Malaysian food is a little bit of everything. You know, so that's kind of what we're doing. You know, just kind of take a little bit of everything that we like and try to make one thing good. You know.
And speaking of marketing, you're the marketing guy on the team. How do you find the technology like social media, Instagram, has changed the way marketing is done? Or the food?
It puts you... So, like, my brother is very personable. So, his marketing is talking to people face to face. I can't do that a lot of times. I'm in the kitchen, and most of the time that's not really my thing. I don't really like doing that. So, being able to... The great thing about social media is that I can post what we need to post on. That I'm trying... The message or the images or the message or whatever we're trying to push, I can put that on our social media. But the great thing about social media is the opposite of that. So if you come to my restaurant and you had a great experience and you took a picture of the food and you posted it, I can turn around and take your experience and post it like immediately. Share it. You know, so that's the great thing about social media that you never really had in the past is marketing was always one-sided. Now it's not just one-sided. So if I repost your story and you'll be like, oh, look, they reposted my story. That's so cool. You know, it makes you feel good. Then the person that doesn't even know you saw like, oh, this person, this is what she had and this is the experience she had. It's very direct. You know, so it's coming from another customer's point of view instead of the restaurant or the business trying to force their agenda on you. So it becomes a lot more open and inviting. That's the great thing about social media, I think.
Do you think there's any kind of dangerous side of the social media if it's not done well?
If you're not smart about it, definitely. We don't get into politics at all. At all. I don't care if it's something that's very close to our hearts. It's all about the food. That's it. It's not about my family. It's not about... It's the food, you know. That's all we talk about. It's the food. You know, nobody needs to know what I think about anything. They just need to know that the food is good. So that's where people get in trouble. You know, their ego gets too big or they have too much hubris. They want to making it more about the food and more about themselves. And that's wrong. It shouldn't be that way.
Talking about, you were saying kimchi, which is spicy. Do you think the young people's palates are changing because they weren't? So
You would be surprised. So there's a handful of people that think our barbecue is too spicy, and that's fine. They're not our target market. You know, like the Houston barbecue scene, we're all very close, and there's a lot of good barbecue here. But if you came into my restaurant, I might be wearing somebody else's shirt. You go into their restaurant, they might be wearing one of our shirts. We're all very close. This is a big city. Everybody's barbecue is uniquely theirs. Just like a hamburger. A McDonald's, a Jack in the Box, and a Wendy's, and a Burger King can all be on the same street, and they all will do just fine. And you might say, I feel like McDonald's one day. Go to McDonald's one day. You might go to Jack in the Box one day. You know, for preference. And they all can survive. We can all survive. So the fact that our food might be more spicy than anyone else's, and some people don't like it, we're fine with that. Because there's plenty of other places that they will like. And they'll be supporting our friends. So that's great. You would be surprised. You say like younger people have a different palate than some of the older people. Yes and no. We had a lady come in. Our food, like our beef jerky, is ghost pepper beef jerky. It is very spicy. And this lady comes in. She's probably early 80s. She's like, oh, y'all got jerky? I said, yeah, we got jerky. It's like, it's ghost pepper jerky, ma'am. It's very, very spicy. And she was like, well, I want to buy some. So well, let me give you a sample. I gave her a sample, and she's like, give me 2 bags. This is a very, very older lady taking ghost pepper, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with ghost pepper. It's one of the hottest peppers out there. And she ate it like it was nothing. So people will surprise you. It's not necessarily age that's about spicy. And it's not even about race. You know, some people think, oh, Latinos, so they can take spicy. Not all Latinos eat spicy. Not all Asians eat spicy. You know? So it's just about the person, really.
So you were talking about the flavors. How about the meat? Is there any special treatment to your meat that makes it so juicy and tender?
Yeah, and that's something more for Kui, but newer barbecue restaurants use better quality meat, and that's why it costs a little bit more. So if you went to, I don't really want to name drop anyone, but like one of these older places that they're serving lower quality meat, so they can serve it to you cheaper. We're using upper prime, almost choice, so it's almost the best quality meat that you can get. So it costs more. That's, you know, that in itself is a cost. The labor that it takes, you know, if we get a 12-pound brisket, after we cook it, it's only 6 pounds. Because you're trimming off probably 30% of the fat, and then you cook off the rest. The rest of it just melts out. So when you buy a 12 to 14 ounce pound brisket, it's like this big. By the time you're finished with it, it's like this big. So that's another reason why it's not necessarily cheap. But the way Kui always says is, if we charge $20 a pound for brisket, and you're complaining about that, but then you go to Guadalajara and you pay $20 a pound for fajitas, but you don't complain about that, you know, it's the same. So, and it takes way longer for us to cook that brisket than it does for them to cook that fajita. Fajita's grilled. It takes 10 minutes. Ours takes 12 hours, you know, so. People are learning, though. People are learning that this is a new age of barbecue. They kind of coined it the craft barbecue movement, just like craft beers. So people are learning that they expect to pay a little bit more for better barbecue.
Have you heard of this company called Beyond Meat?
Mm-hmm.
That was, a few years ago that was IPO'd. And would you ever consider having vegan meat at some point?
I don't know if we would do that or not. I don't know enough about the product as far as like, I know they do burger patties and stuff, but we're not a burger joint. So that's not something we would do. There's also a burger restaurant next to us. So out of respect to them, we wouldn't do burgers. Now, if maybe they offered a different product, maybe we would do it. But honestly, we're a barbecue restaurant. So we don't do seafood. We're not really serving vegan items, you know, I mean, or vegetarian items. I mean, we do have some stuff that's vegetarian on the sides, but that's not really what we do. If you're a vegetarian, why would you come eat at a barbecue restaurant? You know, like, we're kind of like, that's your fault, you know?
So what is your next new item
Uh,
or new concept?
We're always working on stuff. So right now we're working on a pretzel hoagie. It's a smoked turkey with our house-made bacon, melted Swiss, on a pretzel roll that's like a submarine sandwich. And then we stick it in a panini press and melt it all together. That's one we're working on. It's like 90% there, but we always want, whenever we serve something new, we want the customer to eat it and be like, whoa, that was really good. But they're just kind of like, no, this is good. So we know it's not quite there yet. Needs a little work. We just put a BLT on, which people are loving. That one's only been on for like 2 weeks, and they like that. So that's our house-made bacon with lettuce and tomato. We make a special sauce for it, like a special spread. And then we grill that, and it's really good.
Do you have a circle of friends that you tested out on?
It's staff. I mean, we kind of post on our social media that we're testing stuff out, and if they want to come, they can come. You know, but by the time it gets to that point, we're pretty confident about what we're putting out. You know, we'll always take people's opinion. You know, like if they have some criticism, we're always open to criticism. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think we have a good enough palate and know our I guess our image, or know what people expect before we put something out. You know, it's not going to be subpar. You know, we know that there's an expectation there, so we know it's got to be pretty good before we put it across the counter. You know.
So how is the working relationship in your kitchen like? Are they like a family?
I think it probably depends on who you talk to, because I'm kind of strict, you know. But you have to be. You know, I have, like I said, there's so much pressure. I try to tell people all the time, you know, we have people from all over the world coming to eat our food. It better be right when it leaves this kitchen, you know. The last thing you need is for someone to travel, let's just say all the way from Australia, and we send them out something and it looks like garbage, and they take a picture of it and post up. I've traveled all the way from Australia to come here to Blood Brothers Barbecue to check out my food, and then someone posts, that looks like garbage, you know? So I tell them all the time, whatever comes out of this kitchen, you better make sure that it's magazine worthy, you know? Not just picture worthy, magazine worthy, because you never know who's in your restaurant, you know? We've had the editor of Vogue magazine in there, and we didn't know. I just happened to do a search for Blood Brothers, and I checked out Blood Brothers. It was great. I was like, editor, Vogue magazine. I was like, holy cow. You know? You just never know. So it better be good. So yeah, I'm tight in the kitchen. I think, I don't want to say it's a family in there. That's probably a little strong. I think they all know that I respect them, and I think they respect me. And they all know the pressure that we're under. So I think, and they care about the company. You know, they care about the restaurant, so they want to do their best, too.
Can you tell us a bit more about this filming that you're doing?
Yeah, so they actually reached out to us. The Cooking Channel has a show called Man Fire Foods, where it's about just anything cooked over flame, smoke. So they contacted us actually a few years ago, but because we were only doing pop-ups, it's very hard for a film crew to just be like, when are you going to do your pop-up? Oh, the middle of the month next month. It's very hard for them to just pack up their stuff and make it out there, right? So our schedules never aligned. Then they found out that we opened the restaurant. So they called us and they were like, do you still want to do it? We'd love to come see you. When you're dealing with a network television, you're dealing with the producer of that particular show, and then you're dealing with the producer of the actual channel, like the network. So things kind of take a while. So they approached us months ago, like, oh, you interested in doing it? Yeah, we're interested in doing it. Okay, cool. We'll send us a couple emails. Oh, we talked to them a couple times. Oh, okay, cool. We'll let you know. Then 2 weeks ago, hey, you got approved. I'm like, it's in 2 weeks. What days are you doing? Oh, this day and this day. I'm like, well, I was like, I've got something that I can't really change on that date. And they're like, okay, well, we'll work around it, So, yeah, I mean, it's exciting because it's, it's a cable network. We've done some stuff for Local-ish, which is ABC. And I'll have people come in, oh, I saw you on TV. I'm like, what? Oh, Local-ish. Well, apparently, I guess on their digital channel, they play it all the time. We did a thing for PBS a couple years ago. And, it's kind of one of those things, too. When they run out of programming, they throw on these shows, and it gets on all the time. This cable network, same thing. They rerun old shows all the time. So it's a good thing to be able to do this show. And, of course, it's an honor to be a part of the show, but it's also, something that is, repetitive advertising to a more than national audience. I don't know where else they go, but definitely the U.S. and definitely Canada. So that's pretty cool.
Do you have any advice for young entrepreneurs?
Stay humble, work hard. If you have something bad to say about someone, don't say it. Keep it to yourself. You never want to be the ugly person. You have to. It takes a long time to earn respect in this business, and you never want to damage that. So you always want to be someone that other people can respect or will have something nice to say about you. You don't want to ever be the person that someone says, oh, that guy's an idiot, It's bad. So, yeah, work hard, stay respectful, stay humble. Take care of yourself. That's a big one. In this industry, there's so much pressure. Leads to a lot of problems. A lot of drinking, a lot of drugs. Take care of yourself. That's a tough one.
That's important. So do you think there's, with all these AI and booming of technology, would chef be ever replaced by a robot?
No. No. That will never happen. The reason why I can say this to you is that I can tell you right now, I can tell you to cook, let's just say, traditional Chinese dish, eggs and tomato. I can give you a recipe. So 3 eggs, 1 tomato, some blah, 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 blah. Tell you to make it. Actually, I would make it myself. I'll give you my recipe and give a robot my recipe, and I can tell you I want it to taste like this. And I can give you the recipe. I give the robot the recipe. They're not going to taste the same. The reason is, no, the eggs aren't going to taste the same. The tomatoes aren't going to taste the same. So you've got to know how to season. You've got to be able to recognize, oh, this tomato was sweeter than this tomato, or, So that's why it wouldn't work. Humans, you have to have the palate. You have to be able to season, and that's the difference. That tomato might be super runny, this one might be a little more dry. You know, there's just so many elements in cooking. Like if you've got a wet tomato, okay, well, you might have to cook it a little longer, you know, like, you know, cook out some of that moisture or something. There's too many elements to get right in cooking. You can't just follow a recipe, and that's why beginner cooks get so frustrated. I followed the recipe exactly. Why isn't it good? I'm like, well, you actually kind of have to learn how to cook, because no vegetables are, you know, nothing's alike. You can't follow a recipe exactly. You have to know how to react on the fly. You have to know how to make it work, you know?
And I guess how does your Texan and Asian identity come together through cooking? How would you say that?
Because what we're in this restaurant, or just my cooking in general?
In general, I would say.
So I think I'm a little bit different than some of my Chinese friends, because I'm not full-blooded Chinese. Like I said, my father's from Tennessee. My grandmother, growing up, would cook very, like, more traditional Southern food. You know, and I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about, like Southern food, you know, like biscuits and gravy, you know, things like that, like Southern stuff. So I grew up appreciating that. I think that's helped, I guess, in the sense of relating food to American people, is because I really grew up eating American food. And then I also grew up eating very Chinese food. And even some of the stuff I'll order at restaurants, my mom will look at me and be like, how do you even know what that is? Because she would never order that, you know? But when you grow up, and especially if you grow up in Chinatown, you know, a lot of people in the restaurant industry they want to be like, hey, try this. This is so good. You know, and it's something you've never heard of before, like salted fish. My mom would never make that. And it's like one of my favorite things. But yeah, you're around people. So on the one end, I've got extreme Southern comfort food. I've got good, you know, food from my mom at home. And then I've got all these friends in Chinatown in the restaurant industry. They're like, try this. This is great. This is great. And, you know, that's why Houston's so great. You take all those things and put it together, and, you know, you got some amazing food, you know?
Has there been any fusion that went wrong? Or other people's fusion that went wrong?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, you know, some chefs try to force it. I think that when you force things, that's when it kind of, not that it goes wrong, but you kind of miss the mark. You know, we always try to say good food is simple food. And my friend Ryan Lashane will say, yes, it's simple, but they don't see the back end. You know, like I was saying, like there's certain things that you can do to prep food, some prep stuff that's heavy prep. Like you might look at the dish and be like, wow, this is so simple, but it took 10 hours to prep it, you know? But but keeping it simple, keeping it fresh, not trying to force too much into a dish, that's the best food. That's the problem, is that a lot of people try to force too much into the dish, where it becomes, you're trying to think like, well, what are they trying to do here? I can see this over here, I see this over here, but if you just took off a couple things, it would have been like much more, make much better statement, you know? So that's what we try to do. And like, we're not formally trained, so I don't even know how to do all that stuff, you know? So I think that's why we kind of get away with what we get away with, is just because everything that I put into a dish, it has to make sense, it has to work, because I just don't have enough knowledge, you know? That's kind of like the thing with the rice. When we put the rice on at the restaurant when we first opened, and my mom was like, it's okay. I'm like, yeah, I know, Mom, I'm working on it. Like, just leave it alone. Everybody else thinks it's fine. I know it could be better. And I'm working on it. She could tell, she kept coming, she could tell I'm tweaking it out a little bit. And then I finally got it right, and she was like, yeah, it's good. And I'm like, yeah, I know it's good. You know, it took me a little while, but I got it, you know?
So, speaking of the finance side of the restaurant management, how do you make sure that a dish is profitable as well as popular?
So what a lot of people don't understand is that, well, obviously, if you're selling a lot of meat, meat is expensive. So beef especially is expensive. So if all we did was sell beef brisket all day or beef ribs all day, we wouldn't make any money. So you have to look at other things. Pork is cheaper. Poultry is cheaper, you know. So you have to make sure, like, okay, well, if we're going to sell turkey, there's more money there. We got to make sure it's good, you know. So that's how you always try to balance it out. Like for our sides, we have a flat price. Everything's $3 for the small cup. This one, we might not be making any profit at all. This one, it might be all profit. So, you know, you just gotta find those things. If you do everything like over the top, you're never gonna make money. You know, you gotta be able to say like, if we could raise the price on this, but we might sell less. But let's just sell this one because we know we make higher profit. You know, we can cook a little bit more of this one and a little bit less of this one. You know, that makes the demand for this one higher, and we'll have a little bit more of this left over. You know, it'll run a little bit longer. You know, but we'll make more money. You know, so and just find you have to know. This is the problem with a lot of restaurants. Number one, their labor cost is too high, and number two is they try to do too much. Keep it simple. You know, we're only open 4 hours a day right now, 11 o'clock to 3 o'clock. People are like, how can you survive? Even my mom, how can you survive? Only 4 hours a day. I'm like, yeah, but you know how much food we're selling in 4 hours a day? We sell more food in 4 hours than most barbecue restaurants run all day long. But let's just say we try to extend the hours, 3 o'clock to go to 6 o'clock, okay? Most of our business is at lunch. So from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, let's just say 2 customers walk in the door every 30 minutes. But I've got to pay a full staff. Is it worth it? No, why not just close down? Just shut it down. You know what? Stay open another 3 hours to make $100, and then all 100 of that goes to my staff. Doesn't make any sense. Just shut down. You know. So we've been, you know, but we make a little extra to try to stretch it. We also try to integrate, like you said, how do we make money? We try to integrate more high profit items. Like I talked about the sandwich earlier. Sandwiches are good profit. You know, you could charge $10 for a sandwich. You know. So you just try to find out other ways, you know.
Have you ever thought about franchising the business?
People ask that about us every day. I'm actually in the middle of something. I don't think I can talk about it, but there's big plans for the future. I can say that. There's big plans for the future of Blood Brothers. And then that might be something that maybe we can revisit next year. I don't know, you can have like a update or something, you know? It would be interesting because this is a big thing. It would be very interesting. If it all works out. It might not work out, but who knows?
So what would you differentiate like the success of the Blood Brothers among other restaurants?
That's the thing. That's the thing. It's like you wonder, like about where the success is coming from, and at the end of the day, does it matter? I'm sure my brother and Kui don't even think about it. This is stuff I think about. You know, are we deserving of it? You know, is it just because we're Asian? You know, is it just because of this big push on diversity? You know, like you know, all these movements. I mean, I'm like I said, it's probably a little bit of everything. I look at a friend of ours who opened almost the same time we did, and we're getting, and he pays a lot for PR. we don't pay for any PR. I'm PR. You know, like, we don't pay for it. And he looks at what we're doing. It's like, why? I'm paying thousands of dollars for this PR person. You guys seem to be nonstop, you know? But if you watch me all day, I'm on it all day long. I don't sleep. You can talk to my family. I'm in the bathroom. I'm on my phone. I'm always on my phone. I'm always marketing. Always. That's all I do. I'm sure they're not doing that, you know? So, I don't know. Hard work, you know, hard work, a little bit of everything. Maybe, you know, the push on cultural diversity, you know, great story. 3 friends, high school friends open this restaurant. It's good food, you know? It's a chain reaction of things, you know? When the New York Times comes and talks to you, then some other writer's looking at the New York Times. Oh, well, who's that? Oh, I want that. That sounds interesting. And it's a trickle down, right? And it keeps trickling down, So, you just have to keep yourself interesting, I think. You know, like the New York Times article was like a year ago, but someone still might be referencing that. You know, so they want to say like, oh, are they kind of past their prime? Are they still worth talking to? You know, so you should get all these things, you know, and that's what we're kind of, you know, we've been pretty lucky. Like all these kind of things kind of are spaced out to where it kind of like, okay, we're still on people's tongue. You know, people are still talking about us. You know, and that's what you want to do. You just want to keep people talking about you. Otherwise, you get forgotten, and then people start talking about the new guy, the next guy. You know.
So did these media come to you, or did you reach out to them?
I've never reached out to anybody. They find us.
Who was the first person that discovered you?
Locally, you know, I think it always starts locally, right? So we're doing pop-ups, and you know, the local food guys will, hey, go check out these guys this weekend. They're doing this thing, you know, kind of like what's to do this weekend, and then that'll catch the eye of a barbecue fan, barbecue blogger or something, and they come out there and like, oh, these guys are pretty good, and then we do something fun, you know, a dish that's different. Then that catches the eye of the barbecue editor at the Chronicle, who also is one of the partners for the Houston Barbecue Fest. So he comes out, he tries it, he writes about it, he invites us to Houston Barbecue Fest. Houston Barbecue Fest, there's 3,000 people that go to that from all over. Then they start writing about it. You know, all these barbecue bloggers from all over the U.S., from all over Texas, they start writing about it. Oh, Blood Brothers, never heard of these guys, but man, they did some cool stuff. And then it just kind of grows and grows and grows. And that, like I said, that's kind of the benefit of social media and having, you know, a decent, our own decent social media that people can say, like, to tag us. I finally had Blood Brothers, and then they tag us, and then someone that doesn't know who we are at all can go to theirs. It's like, oh, that looks cool. And they click on us, and they look at ours, and they're like, oh, that's really cool. So yeah, it's a big, you know, things can go viral very quickly. I think the New York Times thing was a referral from somebody in OCA or somebody here. He had to come to Houston. He wanted to showcase diversity, so he contacted someone here, and they were like, well, these guys are doing Texas barbecue with an Asian twist and are very well known, and so he came out. It was a very short thing, one day. From that article, though, we also got the Smithsonian article, which was amazing, really cool. We spent a whole day with Brett Martin, the writer, and then a whole day with the photographer. That was really cool. And I thought maximum 2 pages. I mean, it's a barbecue. We weren't the cover story, you know. We're like, oh, a couple pages. It was like 8 pages. in the Smithsonian. So that was really a big deal, you know, very big deal.
So how did you manage a balance between Asianness and Texanness?
I don't know. Like I said, we don't think of ourselves as Asian first.
Mm.
We think of ourselves as Houston first, Texas second, then probably Asian third, I think. You know, I think that's the way we would think about it. You know, you don't. Yeah, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but you know, like, you know, I'm born here, so I'm a native Houstonian. You know, I try to think of myself as not being different from anyone else. You know, even though we know we are. But I think I don't. You know, I think it's improper. It's not right to think of yourself. You know, we're all American, right? So I shouldn't think of myself as Asian first. I think of myself as an American, even though I know I'm Asian. You know.
So how do you manage your time of the day? For example, it's like work-life balance or...
Not right now. It's all work all the time. I try to spend as much time with my family as I can, and they know I'm making a huge sacrifice. They understand that it's not going to be forever. Like I said, if I've got something that I'm working on, if that really works out, then I will be able to spend more time with my kids. But right now, it's a huge sacrifice, you know, for my wife, for my kids. Even if I am home, I'm on the phone, or I'm just so tired, you know. So I mean, my daughter can be talking to me, and I'll just pass out. But you know, I try. You know, they know I'm working on something. You know. Terry and Kui don't have kids, so they don't have to worry about that. You know, but you gotta do it. You know, like I don't have a choice. You know. My kids are great. You know, like I said, I just try my best. That's all you can do. That's all you can do with anything is to do your best, you know?
And how about working with a family member, your brother?
You know, we've been working together forever, so it's fine. I kind of know what I can expect from him. He knows what he can expect from me. You know, I try not to overburden him. Just keep it simple, you know? So that's... I think it's more of a learning experience for Kui, you know, because him and I work well together, but he's never had to really work with my brother very much, so he's kind of learning how to deal with that a little bit, but we do okay. It's a lot of communication. You know, I always say communication makes everything easier. You know, you just got to get it out there.
Yes, just one last question. So where would you go yourself when you go out to eat? Like a restaurant that you would go?
If I'm in Chinatown, I like House of Bowls. I like Shang's Cafe is good. I've been wanting to go to my friend's steakhouse. He just opened this place called My Steakhouse on, I think it's in the Welcome Center. He's a great cook. I haven't been to this restaurant, but he's a great cook. I want to check him out. We go to Sandong, How How. We go to How How. Yeah, I mean, kind of have a bunch of places that we go. Winky, we go there. Yeah. Yeah, if I go out to eat, you know, Golden Dim Sum, I mean, we go all over Chinatown. It's hard for me to do that now with my kids because they don't eat the same food I eat. But man, yeah, I could eat in Chinatown every night and not be bored. But that's me.
That's incredible. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun. I hope it was good.
Yes.
I don't know.